Cloud. I am the UK policy lead at Plaid. In my role, I focus on working with regulators, policymakers, as well as kind of internally with the product team and the sales team to get an understanding of, okay, what's open banking look like, what does payments look like within the UK, and then if we want to build certain products or if we're trying to kind of future-proof and try and understand what's next, I can then take that information from my product and sales team and work on it and use it to then kind of lobby the government, talk to the regulators, get them to understand that the way you've implemented something isn't working anymore because it's stopping innovation or it's introducing an obstacle to the way that we can conduct business. So it's kind of sitting in the middle between kind of internally getting those viewpoints, getting all that expertise, and then also sending that and sharing it externally with the policymakers and regulators so that we can build the best open banking ecosystem, and then also share that kind of with our EU colleagues and also our American colleagues, because open banking isn't just in the UK, it's around the world. So it's a lot of information sharing, it's a lot of information gathering, and it is also a lot of kind of like talking at events like this to get our views across. So things like, okay, open banking is a huge concept. What are our views? What do we want to do? So it's a lot of that. And then Plaid is an open banking provider. We are originally from the US. We started off in San Francisco, and then we made the big jump across the pond in 2019. And then we officially launched in Europe earlier last year when we opened our office in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam actually. So fun to kind of come and actually meet the team for the first time since COVID. So very exciting. But we are like I said, we're an open banking platform. We're also a payment provider in that we are regulated by the FCA within the UK to provide AIS and PIS. And then we are also regulated within the Netherlands for AIS and in the process of obtaining our PIS license. Consumers. It really is consumers. So it's the fact that I can sit here and I have so much data that is at my fingertips, but it's not actually usable to me. So I would argue that I work in finance, I hopefully can understand what my bank is telling me, but that's not the case for everyone. So a lot of people log into their mobile banking app and they may not be able to actually fully understand all the information. Or they might not understand, oh, if I spend £20, I'm going to go into my overdraft and then I'm going to incur fees I'm not going to be able to pay for. They don't always have that information at hand. So it really is just giving consumers that power and that data so they can make better decisions. And it's the desire from consumers to actually want to understand their finances again, that they want to be involved in that they don't want it to just be this passive decision where they just hand over the card or they hand over the cash. Like, they want to actually be able to look at information and decide, what can I use this for? Or how is it best for me to save for that mortgage? Or how is it best for me to save for that trip I've always wanted to go on? So it's really, it's all about data, but it's mostly about consumers. And I always like to say that the biggest success of open banking has been the fact that it is putting consumers back at the heart of payments. It's making everything, we can't do anything as a company without our customers' consent. So that puts so much power back to the consumer so they understand, like, okay, do I want to make this payment? Yes. Is this all the correct information? Do I feel comfortable to make this payment? Do I trust this company? Do I trust my bank? Yeah, okay, confirmed. Yep, payment goes through. So the biggest driver is just that consumers are now, they've evolved and they want the data, they want to have control. And we're seeing that across the board. It's not just in the UK, we're seeing it in Europe, we're seeing it in the US, where consumers are actively going to their banks and saying, I want products and services that are actually going to help me control my finances, that are going to give me the data, going to give me the information so I can sit here and make a better decision. I think it's because everyone's taking a different approach. So in the UK, so within Europe, there was PSD2, so the Revised Payment Services Directive, which introduced the concept of open banking. In the UK, we went the next layer deeper, where we had the order from the CMA, where the 9 largest banks had to build a standardized API. So we have kind of those two big driving regulatory factors. In the US, it's the complete opposite. It is solely market-driven. There's no regulation, there's no open banking regulation. There is a data portability regulation, but it's very open. All it says is that a consumer has the right to move their data. There's nothing specifically saying how they can do that, what parameters there should be to make sure the customer is doing it in a safe way, who should be doing it. It's not regulated, it's just this very broad, in theory you can do it, but nothing further than that. So I think the challenges are that in each jurisdiction, it's just such a different approach. So you try, and I will say people are learning, they're talking, they're trying to learn from different jurisdictions, but in the UK our challenge is that it's now very small. The scope of it has been so small. It's only current accounts, credit cards, and some savings accounts. That's not your financial, you can't make a good financial decision on just that information. So it was one small step, but we really need to get more, and we need to kind of build out, because the goal of it and the main reason for it was so consumers could make better decisions. You can't make a better decision if you don't have all the relevant information. So the biggest challenge I think at the moment is just that we've done that first step, but now we're stuck at this wall. And because it's based on regulation, that wall is very hard to overcome, and we're trying. That's the whole concept of open finance. But until we get open finance, we are still stuck fighting this wall. We're still stuck with this small scope. We're stuck where we want to help consumers, we really do, but we can't, or it's very difficult to. Like, there's other ways we could investigate, or there's other ways we could do it, but until we actually really get that regulation, it's going to be a continuous challenge. I think it's about all of them. So yes, in the UK we have to a degree implemented open banking. We're not done yet. There's still some stuff that we need to implement. But in the US, they've implemented it in a completely different way. And that it wasn't a regulator leading it, it was the market participants who were implementing it. So, and like when I say I'd like to see them all do it, I'd like to see more of a collaborative approach. So there's so many talks, so many different conferences that have explicitly talked and gone into detail about the difference between market-driven versus regulatory-driven. It's not a versus. It should be, okay, this was one approach taken, this was another approach taken. What can we learn? So in the US, we're allowed to actually build and access a significantly broader amount of data. And because of that, we can really provide and build products that can genuinely help a consumer make a better financial decision. We are limited because they took a regulatory approach in the UK, where we can provide you with information to make a more informed decision, but not a better decision. So it's, okay, pull from that, be like, okay, so a broader scope equals better financial decisions. A narrow scope gets you half the way there. So take that as a lesson learned, and then for the next implementation, or when you're reviewing the implementation, understand that sometimes actually, let's trust the market. Let's let them do it. Let's give them the space to breathe, to build the innovation, and to start building it out so they know exactly what to do. And that's again like what we're really pushing for with open finance, is just give us the space. We can do it, you can trust us. Like, we have done it before. Like, I get when open banking first happened, no one really knew what it was. And like the idea of it was like, okay, this is a little scary, but we'll give it a try. It's been 6 years. We know what we're doing. You have really strong, powerful players who every single day are building these things. You can trust us to do it in a safe way. So let us do it. One of the biggest new use cases for us is variable recurring payments. And I think, like, I was actually on last week with you guys to talk about variable recurring payments, and it was it's going to be a hot topic for a while, because it's a game changer. I love it, and one of my favorite variable recurring payment use cases is card on file. So one thing that, like, imagine subscriptions. You kind of just put your card, you go through, and it continuously pays. You don't think about it. It happens. And same with your direct debits. You set them up. When was the last time you sat down and thought about your direct debit? You don't. I've never thought of mine. I see it when I check my bank, and I'm like, okay, cool, I paid for my phone this month. Great. You don't think about it. And that's the beauty of variable recurring payments, is that once you set it up, it will be the same thing. It's the same mundane thing that we've all been doing with direct debits, with card on file transactions, but we're actually adding a magical element to it, because we're making it so it's directly from your bank account. You are the person in control. You set the parameters as the customer. You set, okay, the transaction limit. You say how many payments you want. How long is it going to last for? You are in complete control, and you also have the ability, because you're in complete control, to cancel it if you don't want to do it anymore. Canceling a direct debit can actually be quite challenging. And even better, so that's the consumer angle. The merchant angle, because it's not a credit transaction, it's not going through the credit rails, it's cheaper for them. It's faster, it's more secure, it's cheaper for them. So it's all around just a significantly better use case that is really going to be, and I love describing, because it's not revolutionary. It's literally the same thing that we've all been doing for years, since we got direct debit. but it's taking something that isn't revolutionary and taking something that is so mundane and adding just that little bit of innovation and magic to it to make it fintech and make it snazzy. But at the core of it, it's not super new and it's not revolutionary. It's just the next wave of the future. I think consumer protection is it's becoming more and more of a talked about topic, which I think it needs to. Exactly how the consumer protection works within open banking, like obviously consumers are very protected. Like I've been saying throughout, it's the whole concept of open banking was to put consumers back in control. So there are a lot of consumer protections built into it, but I think where we're starting to see the conversation happen more is around specifically the payments element of open banking. And that, so technically the PIS providers, so like what Plaid does when we are initiating payments, we're not in the flow of funds. All we're doing is sending instructions. But those instructions are obviously then informing the bank that then makes the ultimate payment. So in that scenario, and it's very clear under PSD2 who is liable and so if something goes wrong, and it falls to the bank because they're the one actually making the payment. We're just providing the instructions. If it does ultimately turn out that for some reason Plaid sent the wrong information or there was an error on our side, the bank will contact us and then we will work it out between ourselves. But from a consumer's perspective, the bank is the one liable. So if the payment goes wrong, the consumer can go to the bank and claim redress. But we're still seeing a lot of fraudulent transactions happening, both in kind of the non-open banking world and also the open banking world. And what we need to really start thinking about is how best can we provide as much information. So like speaking now from like a TPP perspective, like how can I work with the banks to give them information on the customer and the payments that they're making through my platform? What can I tell them? What information do they need? So that way they can actually make better informed decisions themselves when they're pushing the payments to say, okay, this looks a bit weird. We're not 100% comfortable. We're not seeing massive red flags, like the fraud warnings aren't being triggered, but this just doesn't seem right. If they can make decisions like that and start really thinking like that, then the protection for a consumer massively will increase. Because it's different in that, so with your card, if you were to make a transaction with your normal credit card, you have chargeback, you have all these other consumer protections that you do not have in open banking because it's not the same system. We're not making the actual payments, we're not on the payment rails. So you can't have the same type of protection, but you do have consumer protection within open banking. It's now just understanding, okay, we have a lot of data. How can we give that data to the banks? How can we work with the banks to build better fraud prevention, to build a better understanding and build the algorithms that they already have to understand and the things that they've already built internally to understand fraud, but also give them that open banking data that they don't have yet. So it's really about collaborating, but collaborating between the banks and the TPPs and having those discussions and being willing to share that information.